All right, back on LinkedIn with my brother Dan Chase. We've been talking about transitioning from the military as a criminal investigator, as a special agent, into the private sector, and you did it. You first went into federal law enforcement, and then into the private sector, and you're a digital forensic advisor, investigator. And we were talking before we recorded here about what that process looked like when you were getting hired on by your current employer. And was there anything unusual about your process that you could share? You talked about maybe how they verify kind of that you have the education, that you have this experience.
Yeah, so digital forensics, obviously there's some licensure involved, certifications that have numbers associated with them, and much like a nursing license or anything else, you can actually look them up with the company and see whether or not they're valid and current. And I would encourage anybody who has licenses or certifications to make sure those are front and center on your resume. You can put there's many styles of resumes out there. I think Tesla or Elon Musk famously has a one-page resume. So that's another style to look at, but definitely put those certs front and center so people can look at them. They can see where to look them up, and they can sort of validate or verify that someone with that name at least has that certificate. So,
well, and because what I was wondering is if they made you take a test or they gave you like a computer or like, hey, how would you examine this? And
right.
You're like, no, I've got all these certifications. Why would they even care?
Yeah. Well, coming from federal service, it's a lot different than say coming from private sector to private sector. Sure. Federal service, I was able to list cases I testified on, which they could look up. I was able to show my certificates again, which have my name associated with them if they're valid, and my points of contact and references, and as well as supervisor, were also federal employees with a .gov or you can a .mil email address. So there's that level of trust there when you're jumping from the federal government to the private sector that you get to keep just because the .gov or .mil email address. Sure. So that's one of the ones one of the things that I was able to use. I have heard, especially when I went to Magnet to interview, that they were going to ask for me to do a PowerPoint presentation based on an image, and then use that image to basically to solve a puzzle and present my answers and how I got to them, and that was part of their interview process. So it's not unlikely that you'd find something like that.
That's interesting, and that was probably just to make sure that you knew what you're talking about. You could present this in a logical manner, and so on and so forth. That's really interesting. And you didn't have to do anything like that with your current employer? They just interviewed you, check your references, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so with my current employer, it was actually strange when you leave the federal government or any type of job like that and you go to one, they actually flew me up for an interview, which is a strange thing if it's never happened to you before.
If you're not in the Gov, or when you're in the Gov, yeah, that is a weird.
You're not hired yet, but they're putting you up in a hotel. They're paying for your airfare. They're feeding
you.
Paying for your food, yes, and making sure you're well taken care of, and then flying you home afterwards. That was definitely something interesting that I've never experienced before. So. I guess having some of those certifications or those weird sort of acronyms behind my name certainly helped out.
So one of the things we were talking about, and we've been discussing this a lot on LinkedIn too, is salary negotiation. That's kind of like the big hot topic. Nobody really, it's more art than science. But you had an interesting experience with yours that I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, work in progress here.
It's all good.
Yeah, so when I got picked up for this company, the salary negotiations, they asked how much I expected to make. And I said, essentially, I wanted to make at least what I was making now. If there was room for growth and room for future, salary increase. And they said, of course they're willing to work with me. And so I told them that my salary is posted online because I was a federal employee. But that's not the soul of my salary, because I also have a cost of living allowance, which increases. And I also have a 25% topper because I was availability pay.
Yep.
And how you could translate that in the military is you could say, here's my salary, it's posted online. as well. But I also
what I
have,
make.
yeah, I also have BAH,
Yeah.
and my healthcare and all this other stuff is covered, so that's value there that's added. And if you have anything else like a COLA adjustment, if you've got some kind of hardship pay, if they're contributing to your TSP, because that's something I argued that the federal government was giving me 6% towards my TSP, so I want that included in my salary negotiation as well. And so I was able to bump up that number to slightly more than I was making initially, based on the calculations of, look, I have all these other things I'm getting, all these other benefits that have monetary value, and I would like those counted in this negotiation towards my salary.
So really knowing what you're making as well as what your benefits are in your government job or in your military job before you transition, that's your full value. So, because a lot of people just look at the numbers. I mean, when I transitioned, I just looked at, okay, I'm a GS-13 step, whatever. This is what it translates to every year. And, as long as we're above that, then we're good. And they actually made different calculations and they came up with a different number. Fortunately, that number was in my benefit and helped me transition. But which is a great point. Did they give you any feedback about the salary negotiation? Did they give you any pushback? Were they hesitant at all or reluctant?
There was a callback on the initial number, basically saying, "Hey, help us get to this number that you've said that you'd like. Help us get there." And I was able to show them through the math that we just talked about. Like, I also have this percentage going towards TSP. And I also have this going in that you guys don't necessarily have or you don't offer. And
Sure.
so, or their percentage wasn't the same. So, I would like that included in my negotiations. What I also say is the federal TSP has been paying back at a much higher rate than any 401k or IRA plan you could see out there. So I would not hesitate to use that as a bargaining chip if I could. I could, definitely say, listen, I won't have access to TSP anymore, which is almost zero fees whatsoever for management.
Right.
And it's returning like 11%, over the year. And I see that the plan that we offer does have some fees and is only returning, say, 7%, So I'd like to make that up if I can somewhere within the salary negotiation.
So being smart about what that is, what that looks like, and talking to people who've made that transition and asking them. I was on a podcast a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago now, with a financial planner who helps federal law enforcement or federal employees plan for their retirement. And we had this essential discussion was you just got to know what impact will be. And if you don't know, you got to go find out and figure it out, because it can mean a lot to you in the future. For me, the big analysis, because living in Silicon Valley or coming up in Silicon Valley, was tech stock. I got tremendous amount of tech stock that I didn't really even understand until many years after getting it. I understand it really well now and understand the value there, but that's really important to highlight. Let's talk about kind of the future of what you do and how you do it. There are tons of people in the government and in the military that do what you do, and they're going to be transitioning soon. What does the career projection look like? You think that there will be opportunities for them in the future here?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I would highlight is look at what you want to do and see if there's any way that you can sample that going forward without having to commit to something just yet. Right. So I think we've had discussion before about those, they call them MOOCs, massive online classrooms. See if you can take one of those free courses in something that interests you. So digital forensics, a basic class, or, I don't know, medical terminology, or, anything that you think.
Healthcare administration.
Healthcare administration. We need some more good healthcare administrators. See if that's something that interests you through one of these free courses. Some people say, something only has value in how you paid for it, or what you paid for it. That's not necessarily true, because you're getting the experience out of it. So, try not to take the course for granted. See it to its end. I'm guilty myself of signing up for a whole bunch of free training and then being like, well, it's
Never
free.
going.
Yeah, I took the first two, courses, and then that was it. But yeah, see it out and see if it's something that super interests you, or something that really catches you and that wants you to keep going with it. And I think finding that will help you narrow that lane that we had spoke about before, or at least sort of maybe widen that lane to some other things you may not have considered that you also, could definitely see as a second career or a third career, as it were, for some people. So that, first and foremost, broaden your horizons, take advantage of some of those free things that are out there.
Even before you transition, before you've left your
Right,
your employment.
because you should be planning 12 months before you transition.
Right. Yeah.
Like many of us, I actually didn't plan 12 months before I transitioned. I was told that if I wanted to transition, I would have to move someplace hot and sandy without my family for 2 years, and I decided that it was much better.
I know that place.
So hot and sandy without my family for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I opted to the retirement angle, and it has been a journey, and it's been a wonderful journey. And that's something that, again, just using all those things we've talked about before, using my resources, finding a military-friendly school if you're going to go to school. I think we talked about that before. They know what they're doing. If not military-friendly, then at least an adult-friendly school.
Sure.
Because those kind of schools are set up for people who have other priorities in life and have to juggle them. And they cut out a lot of the fluff and experience that you don't necessarily need as an adult. So that's another big kicker that I could say helped me along in my career and planning for this sort of transitionary period.
Okay. So what does the jobs look like out there for people in digital forensics? What do you think?
Digital forensics
careers? Or what are the changes that are going to happen here in the future?
The changes are your cell phone is probably going to be the only portal you have into data from now on. The cloud is growing more and more. And just like we have subscription services for cable and internet and other things, I think fairly soon we're going to have subscription services for cloud storage. Yeah. Which there already is, but I think they're going to become more the norm than they are right now. People are using that 5 gig free with Amazon and Google. They're using it super quick with all the videos and photos, and all our phones are taking more high-res photos, more high-res videos. We're recording our lives more and more, and all that stuff's got to go someplace. So the cloud is probably going to be more encompassing than it is right now.
What kind of certifications or skills or tools are they going to need for that, though? Is it magnet forensics or EnCase, or what are some of the hard tools that they can get now?
One of the best tools is Cellebrite, which is funny because we had a discussion about how they're in the news recently. And for those who are not in the know, just go ahead and look up Google Cellebrite versus Signal, or Cellebrite space Signal, and you'll see there's a little bit of a war going on between these two companies. Cellebrite, obviously the company that can get into things and tries to break that encryption, and Signal being a company who is focused on extremely strong encrypted communications. So since these two are sort of competing, you can see what they've been up to lately, and it's actually a pretty fun read. But I think Cellebrite is still one of the gold standards, one of the ones you're still going to want. And then what I would say, honestly, outside of that stuff is you can get a Security Plus cert or a Networking Plus cert or any one of these other certifications that are sort of your entry-level IT certifications that really come into play when you're talking about forensics. Even something like an A+ through Microsoft really comes into play, or it may not be called A+ anymore. It might be called Computer Fundamentals or something along those lines. But so much of this job is knowing how to take a device apart the right way, and how to get physically at what you want to get at, and where that exploit is, or where you're going to be able to pull that information from, as well as some general or minor comfortability within, say, a DOS window or a terminal window, or some kind of little bit of coding, because a lot of these tools that we use are also, they're sort of bare bones, so they don't have a Windows interface.
Not user-friendly, not a GUI. It doesn't have a GUI.
People in this job, they know that they know what works, and they don't spend a lot of time on the fluff. So
no, because it's very technical still. I think that's the reality, and that's why we need folks like you. Yeah.
I don't want to scare anybody away. It's not so technical that nobody can do it. It's you have some attention to detail, and you're not, and you can follow the same steps over and over and over again. It's just, in the military, I guess, we're born for that. You could do this job. You really could. It's just, computers follow the orders they're given, and as long as you put those orders in the right way, the right format, they'll execute them perfectly every time. So that's just something to keep in mind. It is technical, but anybody could do it. I could do it. Anybody could.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, this has been a great conversation, Dan. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. I think, understanding the forensics world, understanding the cyber and the digital world is an imperative. So what I'll say to the folks watching at home, if you don't have a good understanding of digital, and it could be anything from an application on your phone to an application on your computer, try to understand that, break out of I'm comfortable with typewriters, I type like this, that's gone. We want you to be successful. Dan, you gave great suggestions with the Microsoft Fundamentals courses. The MOOC courses are free, and that you can take all kinds of stuff. And what I say is, if you take it once and you didn't understand it, take it again.
Right.
And you'll get little bits and pieces, and you'll start to understand. This stuff is not unattainable. Understanding these things is now an imperative, I think. We're looking at folks living longer. You can't retire at 60 anymore and go fish all day or play golf. And we want you in the workplace, and we want you to be successful. The more successful you can be, the more successful we'll all be as a society. So upskill yourself, learn those new skills. Don't be afraid that it's overly burdensome, because while I agree with you, some of the more technical aspects of what you do is really technical, but I think there's a lot of what people can do and can learn that is not as technical, and they can kind of come up. And there's plenty of people out there that will help you do it. So with that, Dan, thank you very much. Really appreciate talking to you, brother. I miss you a lot. We got to get together when this whole COVID thing blows over. We'll get together.
No masks.
Yeah, no masks. Yeah. So thanks, guys, or everybody. Please like this. Send it to your partners. Share. You don't have to go through this process alone. We're here to help. And guys like Dan are amazing resources, so consider that, and keep following along with us. That helps us greatly too. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Scott.